in the long run, it may not have achieved much, namely, get some form of a Middle East peace agreement. Now George Bush is trying to do it, and as was the case with Reagan and Clinton, trying to do it in the last days of his presidency. Today in Annapolis, Maryland, the president took up the mantle of peacemaker, hosting an Israeli-Palestinian summit. Dozens of nations sent representatives. Our senior national security correspondent, Jonathan Karl, is there tonight. John, good evening.
Good evening, Charlie. For most of the past 7 years, the president has taken a mostly hands-off approach to the Palestinian issue. Today, however, he signaled that for the last year of his presidency, he wants Mideast peace to be a dominant issue. It took some effort, but with that handshake, the Israeli and Palestinian leaders agreed to launch their first serious peace talks in 7 years, and President Bush agreed to help them along.
I believe now is precisely the right time to begin these negotiations. The time is right because Palestinians and Israelis have leaders who are determined to achieve peace.
In a joint statement, the two sides agreed to begin continuous peace negotiations immediately, that the U.S. will act as monitor and mediator, and to make every effort to reach a peace deal by the end of next year. Perhaps most significantly, a dozen Arab nations were represented here, including Syria and Saudi Arabia, neither of which has diplomatic relations with Israel. It's a first. Never before have Israeli-Palestinian peace talks been supported by so many Arab nations. The Saudis called the conference a step in the right direction, and Syria's representative told ABC News he was, quote, hopeful. But despite a lot of talk about the need for peace, there was no real discussion today of the core issues that continue to divide Israelis and Palestinians. The borders of a Palestinian state, whether Palestinian refugees will be allowed to return, and the status of Jerusalem, which both sides claim as their capital.
I pledge to devote my effort during my time as president to do all I can to help you achieve this ambitious goal.
That's a big change for President Bush. When he was first elected, he criticized President Clinton's efforts to achieve Middle East peace. If a summit fails, Bush said in 2002, then the follow-up is worse than the status quo.
It has never been a top priority for this administration. The real question in the wake of Annapolis is it now a top priority?
Some senior officials are privately skeptical about this effort. Says one, it will take more than luck. It will take magic to succeed. In contrast to President Clinton, who visited Jerusalem 4 times, President Bush has not set foot in Israel since he became president. But that may soon change, Charlie. Senior officials tell ABC News that the president may travel to Israel and the Palestinian territories next year.
Jonathan Karl in Annapolis, Maryland tonight. Well, there was an extraordinary and encouraging moment today. The Saudi representatives at the conference actually applauded the remarks of the Israeli Prime Minister. But what happens at conference tables in the United States is not necessarily reflected on the streets of Israel or the Palestinian territories. Our Middle East correspondent, Simon McGregor-Wood, has the reaction from the region.
In the Palestinian territories today, a sign of how difficult making peace will be. In Hamas-controlled Gaza, tens of thousands demonstrated against the talks in Annapolis. Here they call President Mahmoud Abbas a collaborator, and every day fire rockets into Israel. Even in the West Bank, which Abbas controls, more demonstrations against the summit. Not everyone in Israel wants Annapolis to work either. In Jerusalem, 10,000 right-wing Israelis warned Prime Minister Ehud Olmert not to make concessions and threatened to bring down his government if he does. The polls say majorities on both sides still want a two-state deal, but 78% of Israelis and 67% of Palestinians think the Annapolis summit will fail to make progress towards peace.
It will take maybe another generation for us to get out from this mess.
I have lots of hope, but I don't think they will reach an agreement.
The two leaders may want peace, but they are both unpopular and weak, ill-equipped, some say, to make the tough decisions that lie ahead.
In an Israeli high school, a new computer game called PeaceMaker was launched today. Children playing the role of Israeli and Palestinian leaders trying to make peace in a virtual world of suicide bombings and Israeli military strikes.
I played in the Palestinian side, and suddenly I saw what is going on in their side.
To make a real peace is very hard.
For Abbas and Olmert, peacemaking in the real world will be even harder. Simon McGregor-Wood, ABC News, Jerusalem.